The Gospel of Nicodemus, formerly called the Acts of Pontius Pilate, Part 1, Chapter 5. But a certain man, Nicodemus, a Jew, came and stood before the governor and said, I beseech thee, good pious Lord, bid me speak a few words. Pilate said, Say on, Nicodemus. Nicodemus said, I say unto the elders and the priests and Levites, and unto all the multitude of the Jews in the synagogue, Wherefore contend ye with this man? This man doeth many and wonderful signs, which no man hath done, neither will do. Let him alone, and contrive not any evil against him. If the signs which he doth are of God, they will stand, but if they be of men, they will come to naught. For verily Moses, when he was sent of God into Egypt, did many signs which God commanded him to do before Pharaoh king of Egypt. And there were certain men servants of Pharaoh, Jannes and Jambres, and they also did signs, not a few, of them which Moses did. And the Egyptians held them as gods, even Jannes and Jambres. And whereas the signs which they did were not of God, they perished, and those also that believed on them. And now let this man go, for he is not worthy of death. The Jews say unto Nicodemus, Thou didst become his disciple, and thou speakest on his behalf. Nicodemus said unto them, Is the governor also become his disciple, that he speaketh on his behalf? Did not Caesar appoint him unto this dignity? And the Jews were raging and gnashing their teeth against Nicodemus. Pilate said unto them, Wherefore gnash ye your teeth against him, whereas ye have heard the truth? The Jews said unto Nicodemus, Mayest I receive this truth and his portion? Nicodemus saith, Amen, amen, may I receive it as ye have said. Chapter 6. Now one of the Jews came forward, and besought the governor that he might speak a word. The governor saith, If thou wilt say aught, speak on. And the Jew said, 38 years lay I on a bed in suffering of pains, and at the coming of Jesus many that were possessed and laid with divers diseases were healed by him. And certain faithful young men took pity on me, and carried me with my bed, and brought me unto him. And when Jesus saw me, he had compassion, and spake a word unto me, Take up thy bed and walk. And I took up my bed and walked. And Jews say unto Pilate, Ask of him what day it was whereon he was healed. He that was healed saith, It was on the Sabbath. The Jews say, Did we not inform thee also that upon the Sabbath he healed and casteth out devils? And another Jew came forward and said, I was born blind. I heard words, but I saw no man's face. And as Jesus passed by, I cried with a loud voice, Have mercy on me, O Son of David. And he took pity on me, and put his hands upon mine eyes, and I received sight immediately. And another Jew came forward and said, I was bowed, and he made me straight with a word. And another said, I was a leper, and he healed me with a word. Chapter 7. And a certain woman named Bernice, or Veronike, that is, cried out from afar off, and said, I had an issue of blood, and touched the hem of his garment, and the flowing of my blood was stayed, which I had for 12 years. The Jews say, We have a law that a woman shall not come to give testimony. Chapter 8. And certain others, even a multitude both of men and women, cried out, saying, This man is a prophet, and the devils are subject unto him. Pilate said to them which said, The devils are subject unto him, Wherefore were not your teachers also subject unto him? They say unto Pilate, We know not. Others also said, He raised up Lazarus, which was dead, out of his tomb after 4 days. And the governor was afraid, and said unto all the multitude of the Jews, Wherefore will ye shed innocent blood? Chapter 9. And he called unto him Nicodemus, whose 12 men which said that he was not born of fornication, and said unto them, What shall I do? For there ariseth sedition among the people. They say unto him, We know not, let them see to it. Again Pilate called for all the multitude of the Jews, and said, Ye know that ye have a custom that at the feast of unleavened bread, Passover that is, I should release unto you a prisoner. Now I have a prisoner under condemnation in the prison, a murderer, Barnabas by name. And this Jesus also, which standeth before you, in whom I find no fault. Whom will ye that I release unto you? But they cried out, Barnabas. Pilate saith, What shall I do then with Jesus, who is called Christ? The Jews say, Let him be crucified. But certain of the Jews answered, Thou art not a friend of Caesar's if thou let this man go, for he called himself the Son of God and a king. Thou wilt therefore have him for king, and not Caesar? And Pilate was wroth, and said unto the Jews, Your nation is always seditious, and ye rebel against your benefactors. The Jews say, Against what benefactors? Pilate saith, According as I have heard, your God brought you out of Egypt, out of a hard bondage, and led you safe through the sea, thus as by dry land. And in the wilderness he nourished you with manna, and gave you quails, and gave you water to drink out of a rock, and gave unto you a law. And in all these things he provoked your God to anger, and sought out a molten calf, and angered your God, and he sought to slay you. And Moses made supplication for you, and you were not put to death. And now ye do accuse me that I hate the king, or the emperor that is. And he rose up from the judgment seat, and sought to go forth. And the Jews cried out, saying, We know our king, even Caesar, and not Jesus. For indeed the wise men brought gifts from the east unto him as unto a king. And when Herod heard from the wise men that a king was born, he sought to slay him. And when his father Joseph knew that, he took him and his mother, and they fled into Egypt. And when Herod heard it, he destroyed the children of the Hebrews that were born in Bethlehem. And when Pilate heard these words, he was afraid. And Pilate silenced the multitude, because they cried still, and said unto him, So then this is he whom Herod sought? The Jews say, Yea, this is he. And Pilate took water, and washed his hands before the sun, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just man. See you to it. Again the Jews cried out, His blood be upon us and upon our children. Then Pilate commanded the veil to be drawn before the judgment seat, whereon he sat, and saith unto Jesus, Thy nation hath convicted thee. They accuse thee as being a king. Therefore have I decreed that thou shouldest first be scourged according to the law of the pious emperors, and thereafter hanged upon the cross in the garden wherein thou wast taken. And let Dismas and Gestas, the two malefactors, be crucified with thee. Chapter 10. And Jesus went forth of the judgment hall, and the two malefactors with him. And when they were come to the place, they stripped him of his garments, and girt him with a linen cloth, and put a crown of thorns upon his head. Likewise also they hanged up the two malefactors. But Jesus saith, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And the soldiers divided his garments among them. And the people stood looking upon him, and the chief priests and the rulers with them, deriding him, saying, He saved others, let him save himself. And if he be the Son of God, let him come down from the cross. And the soldiers also mocked him, coming and offering him vinegar with gall. And they say, If thou be the King of the Jews, save yourself. And Pilate, after the sentence, commanded his accusation to be written for a title, in letters of Greek and Latin and Hebrew, according to the saying of the Jews, that he was the King of the Jews. And one of the malefactors that were hanged, by the name Gestas, spoke unto him, saying, If thou be Christ, save thyself and us. But Dismas answering rebuked him, saying, Dost thou not at all fear God, seeing thou art in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. But this man hath done nothing amiss. And he saith unto Jesus, Remember me, Lord, in thy kingdom. And Jesus said unto him, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, that today thou shalt be with me in paradise.